Extreme sports and learning to endure is what put my next guest on the path of musical stardom. On the tea time sofa this week is Sofia Evangelina, who's nearly 18, has already competed in Canada's extreme skiing team and is now pursuing a music career with an amazing R&B voice. She is not just a singer, but also an inspirational songwriter who has already penned hits such as Endure. So let's find out more. Sophia, welcome to Tea Time with me, Ali Monjak. So how are you?
Oh, thank you so much, Ali, for having me. I almost have tea. I have coffee, but it should do the job.
Lovely. Yeah, I've got my tea in my A mug. So,
Amazing.
and you've got your princess mug. That's
Oh, you
so
got
cool.
it. Yeah.
Is that your favorite mug?
How did you know?
Because you seem like a princess. You really do.
Well, stop. You're making me blush.
Oh, no, that's cool. So it's been quite a couple of years for you, hasn't it? Really breaking into the music business because you were actually a skier as well. Gosh, I mean, you are not very old in terms of, you're not even 20 yet, and you've already had quite a life, haven't you?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, I am 18 this year, which is a funny age for me because when I was a small child, I was so crazily involved in so many things, and I was so full of life, I suppose. But I was one of those kids who never wanted to grow up. I never wanted. I was like a Peter Panette. I never wanted to see the adult days. Of course, I knew that there would be some great in them, but I just thought my soul was born to be a kid. And then I never thought I would be 18. I thought 18 was like a granny. I was like, that's the end of the road. My life will be over. And it's so funny. And here I am and 18. And I was like, well, it's not over actually. Turns out there's like this whole brand new life awaiting, especially womanhood and being a girl. It's a very big difference from being a rambunctious daredevil child and then actually wanting to be more feminine and elegant and classy, and it's a really interesting experience. But yes, to answer your question quickly, I'm a former professional extreme sports athlete, and my first album I recorded at the same time as I was in one of the World Cup circuits, one of my last years competing. And when we released the album, and after certain events, I decided to retire my ski career and go full throttle into music. And that was at 15 and 15 and a half. And at that point, we started developing teams, and we put out the first album singles, and then we recorded Smile and Endure. Smile came out pretty soon after we recorded it, and Endure, like I mentioned earlier, was a 2-year pause, and that was because we had a bit of a halt situation with team we were involved with in Atlanta wanting to sign us to a major label, and because of all the world events, the riots, the coronavirus lockdowns, and just nonstop event after event and perturbations, everything was just getting delayed until our contract lapsed in time. But we decided not to renew it. We decided to take everything into our own hands and to just go free-willed, independent and release our music. So that is what we did. We released Endure first.
Yeah, and it's an amazing song because you're not just a singer. I mean, you are a songwriter, aren't you, as well? And I mean, where did you come up with the lyrics? Did it take a long time? How did you come up with that?
Oh yeah, well that's a great question. Endure was definitely a very incredibly pivotal moment in my career as a songwriter as well as a vocalist, just emotive wise, because it's the first time I really found my tone. Not just vocal, but I mean my tone, the way that I would present my emotions, the way I would write a narrative, the way that I would uncover my truest emotions and how I felt. And I mean, at that point, it was very metaphorical, but endure is testimony to the human spirit, right? And to, the relentless journeys that we face. And sometimes they're so trying and so devastating and so even terrifying. And yet we have to find that will to survive it and to persevere and to endure through it. And so that was kind of like a very common theme in my life, for a huge part of my life, especially as an athlete. Um, which is countless stories, all kind of recollected into one song. And I knew that it was a theme that not only would be relevant to me at one point in my life, even in one career in my life, but something that would repeat itself consistently throughout my life, probably till the day I die, until I'm as old as can be. Because just that sentiment of having to face your biggest fears or your biggest obstacles and finding something within you that you don't even know you have present with you, and finding it and overcoming your situation and making it to the other side. That's something we all as humans face in one way or another in a situations unique to us. So that is kind of lyrically how it came about. And then of course there's a lot of metaphors in there. I really like using metaphors to tell stories, because I feel like it presents so much emotion into one little meaning that can refer and relate to so many different people in many different walks of life. And the funny thing is, it was also the session that we were creating Endure in was completely designed for another single. Like, we were in the process of writing another song, which was completely girly and flamboyant and fun. And, I had given my guitarist some references to go off of. And he started, riffing and running. And the next thing you know, he's in this trance and he's in this loop. He's in this like a little chord structure that's super moody and dark. And the next thing you know, I'm like, wow, this is very different. And I scratch all my lyrics and I'm like, no, this is a different song. And so I just start feeling the vibes that are coming in the room. And then my producer had to take a phone call. He left. He was supposed to be 3 minutes. He came back half an hour later. And the next thing he knows, there's like this big trance in the room. Everybody's just in the music. And he doesn't even know what to do. So he just hops on the piano, doesn't say anything, and he adds in his vibe. And that was kind of the beginning of the creation, which was crazy, very kind of spiritual. And my mom knew that it was a very, vulnerable moment, but something that might not ever be created again. So she put her phone on recording, which is so smart because later down the road, that's what we ended up using again in the real song.
Is the recording on your mum's phone?
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing, really, if you think about it? Because, what we hear now on Spotify and other platforms is this beautiful, polished version, of Endure. So, and I can imagine that it was very sort of almost rustic, wasn't it, when, your mum kind of recorded your first sort of rendition of it.
Yeah, no, 100%. Well, and the reason that she did that and then we ended up using it was because in that same trip, because we were recording in a city that was far away from where we lived, somewhere we have to fly to and from. And so we were on a trip there, and by the time we were in the studio recording, putting through like the first mix and everything, we hated it. It did not sound the same. It did not have the same motive. It did not have the same energy, the feeling, anything that transfixed us very early on about the song. So, we decided to take a couple months and really see what is it that we're missing, what is it that we're losing. And then my mom found that phone recording, and we compared it, and it was just worlds apart. So when we came back to Toronto, we're like, okay, we're going to use this phone recording and we're going to build everything on top of it, because that will keep the integrity of the original motive of the song.
Yeah. So no, that is truly amazing. So are you working on an album at the moment?
Well, that's a great question. We are having those 5 singles I mentioned just before we got on Zoom. Those 5 singles are kind of like a potential album, but they're not, because they're released in a Spitfire manner of being a singles. And the reason that we're doing that is because being right now and building the discography, we want to release single after single after single so that it kind of builds the story, builds the narrative, and also so that the platform keeps kind of rising up. New fans come in, new listeners become engaged. They can listen to the last single, but then they're excited about what's to come. And then they see what's to come, and then they're like, oh, and there's something else to come, right? So that is kind of our strategy right now. coming from the place that we are at right now. But I'm super excited that you asked about an album because I've been obsessing over my new ideas put into an album that I have desires to create in 2022. I already have the name and I have the track list, some of the songs even written. But an album process is very different usually. You can end up writing hundreds of songs just to see which ones make the final 11 or 13 or whatever the number is on the final track list. But I am very, very excited about that. So that's kind of my vision for the future following the 5 singles we have to come after Enjoy.
That is amazing, definitely. So that is something to really, really look forward to, isn't it, next year? And that should build such momentum, and it'll be really exciting. So when did you first discover this amazing voice? Because it's an amazing R&B voice, isn't it?
Thank you very much. Well, the funny thing is, I was singing at a very young age, I would say. I started my modeling, acting, and singing training probably when I was around 4 or 5. But I was also rambunctious and had all this energy, and I was put into sports very young. And so I was balancing the two careers. But I would say, as a very small child, I loved to sing, but I don't know if anybody thought of it anything. It was just another little girl singing, right? But we took a couple breaks in and out because I was so busy with my sports. We came back when I was 7, which I know in retrospect is not a big break considering 5 and 7. But at the time, it seems like a long time. And so at 7, we came back and I started new vocal lessons. And so this coach came to my parents and she said, Sophia has such a jazzy voice. It's almost unusual for her age. And I was like, don't say that. I'm a pop star. I was like so offended at the theme because I did not realize the power and the beauty of having a jazzy voice. And little did I know that would become like a secret weapon. But then, my mom slowly introduced me to well, actually first she introduced me to Andrew Lloyd Webber, his operas, and I became so infatuated with the beauty of them that she even took me to Las Vegas to see the concert, no, the play, I would say. And that continued into her discovering Motown with me and blues and jazz, and then that opened us up to burlesque. Now burlesque was the movie that really changed it all for me, because the minute I heard Christina Aguilera sing her opening line, which was like, oh, sometimes, like, it was so big, it was amazing. She stood on that chair with all this power and this presence, and her voice just shook the world, and I was like, yes, oh my god, that's me, I love that so much. And I was just obsessed from that moment on with expressing myself in such a big way. And so from that point on, I became really loud per se. I just found really expressive. I found myself, like I saw myself, and I was kind of like a wild child in that respect. That no coach could tell me that I was too loud or something. I wouldn't listen. I only later I I discovered, I need to work on my technique. I need to work on uncovering the intricacies of my voice, which my mom was a big proponent for. But it took time because when I was younger, I was just so stubborn. I don't know where I got it from. And anyway, so and from then on, that just became a journey of kind of vocal evolution and learning from different perspectives and coaches, and classical operatic training to work on my range and my registers, and gospel to get the soul out, the riffs and the runs, and just experimentation. A lot of learning and listening to my favorite idols, and until I just really found my voice and who that is, what that is, and the sonic fingerprint it kind of has. And you haven't heard the new music yet, but I think when you will, you'll probably hear that there's like a continuation of the sonic footprint, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does make sense. That sounds absolutely amazing. So, it's interesting how you've kind of used your idols and sort of, followed them in a way, like Christina Aguilera. I mean, you've got a very powerful voice as well. So, and you've kind of followed along that journey, and here you are now. Do you feel that you're constantly developing as an artist?
Oh my God, yes. Yeah, 100% in every way. vocally even I'm very competitive, right? Coming from my sport, and I just, it's always a competition with myself, though. Of course, that's the point. It's always been competition with myself, even in my sport, which is obviously a competitive sport against other athletes. But the way I was brought and the way I trained myself was mentally to always try to be better than myself, right? And so, vocally, that's where I find myself right now. Is that you know I always want to do the riff better, the riff faster, a melisma smoother. I want to go higher. I want to go lower with more strength. And so, it's like it's an everyday kind of obsession to be a better version of myself than I was yesterday, which I think is kind of just the way I operate, which is great for me because, that's what kind of keeps the flame going and strong until the day I die, is to always be wanting and yearning to be a grander version of yourself, realizing that there's always a next level. And I think that's really important for an artist to consistently want to evolve, to never get too comfortable, to never think that oh, I'm good enough, or my message that I said was sufficient, or this album was pretty good, I don't think I can ever top it. And I mean, you never know, maybe there's a certain truth to that. Maybe some fans will love a certain album, but you always, for me, I feel like you have to continuously evolve. You have to continuously strive to see what's the next level for you. Level up, level up, level up. It's like a video game that never ends. And lyrically, songwriting wise, I mean, I'm always discovering new emotions and new feelings. And I was not really in tune with my feelings as an athlete because I was trained to be like super mentally tough and to never give in to pain or to fear or to vulnerability and to never show it, because that was how I would, maintain my success, maintain the strength of my mind, which was super, super, super crucial in a very dangerous sport. So when I came into the world of singing and songwriting, it was very hard in the beginning to actually be vulnerable or to say something truthful about my emotions because I felt guarded and walled up. But those walls have been shattered. They continue to be shattered with every new experience and every new song. I go a little deeper in some perspective. And yeah, it's very exciting because it keeps you really on your edge.
Yeah, no, it sounds it as well. And you're actually going out to do some live gigs, are you?
Yes, well, I mean, obviously before coronavirus, for sure, and I mean, in this time, it wasn't too much, and obviously, I was also in a little bit of a tied up situation where I couldn't perform too much because of the contract I was in. But now moving forward, I started doing some live streams and things like that, and of course, come the opening of festivals and tours, which they're already doing right now. I'm super looking forward to going and performing with big, amazing audiences. And the goal is to do some tours um, in this coming year and a half. Of course, the dream plan is, world sold out arena stadium tours, and we'll get there. But the first step is I have like a school tour that I'm a part of that's against bullying that was in the works for the last 4 or 5 years. And finally, it looks like they're picking up the legwork and everything is kind of coming together perfectly for them to be able to initiate the tour, which is beautiful. And hopefully, there'll be some other touring and festivals this summer. We'll see, kind of still waiting to hear from those. But I do absolutely love performing more than anything.
Fantastic. Well, that would be something to really look forward to and also look out for, for members of the public as well to actually come and see you live. That would be really thrilling for your fans as well, won't it?
I hope so. I think it's a really incredible experience you get to share with your audiences. It's a really connective one, one where the song becomes yours, the audience's song, and the performance is just this interlocked and interwoven kind of energy. It's really different than anything, especially in this day and age where everything is digital. People are doing all their concerts live streamed, which is great. It's a great opportunity to continue the craft even during the weird, unprecedented circumstances. But there's just nothing like live, you know what I mean? And that's the weird thing about this whole virus taking the world like it did was, everything became so inhuman in a way. I mean, I think people forgot how to talk to each other sometimes, or, oh, you actually have hair, you have like skin, you're a human, and
Mm.
so I can't wait to really bring back that human touch and that live energy, everything that makes us all, the same at heart.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. And I think, it's been a shame, hasn't it? I mean, it's taken away live performances for many, many people across the world and, well, virtually everybody. So it's good to be sort of looking forward and planning that almost reconnection with your fans and followers, isn't it, really? Because you're absolutely right. I mean, it doesn't compare, doesn't it, to streaming online, to doing a live concert. It just doesn't.
Yeah,
Yeah. So that,
100%.
yeah, definitely. So have you ever thought about experimenting with your genre of music? I mean, you're very much R&B, don't get me wrong. I think you've hit the spot. It's amazing, your vocals. Have you ever thought about, maybe doing some country or mixing it up a bit?
Well, it's funny you say country, because a lot of people think like, wow, you have like the best country voice if you went down that lane. And it's funny because, being an artist, I always mentioned that I love and appreciate every single genre, but country was always my least favorite, just from a listening standpoint. However, vocally, I think it would be pretty fun. And, to answer your question, absolutely. I don't confine myself whatsoever. And if I ever do, I want somebody to kick my butt right away so that I remind myself not to do that. I think that every genre can find its sister or its brother in the genre next to him. And that's really what a genre is. It's a kind of an assimilation of another genre at some point, give or take certain elements that, came forth, and it came to fruition and it made that genre. But they're all really connected in some way. So R&B is definitely where my roots are, my soul is, and I love pop, obviously. And but I would also like to try everything. I mean, I just been experimenting with some rock and roll covers, and I think that would be really fun. I also really like the divide between old and new and how you can make the assimilation and kind of bridge the gap between those. Like for example, with Weeknd's latest album, it was very 80s inspired, but the production was all crisp and clean and brand new. Like the production ringed 2021 or 2020, whenever it was released. But obviously, the motives were very 80s, which is very interesting because, I think it's so important to pay tribute and homage to previous generations. I think especially that all these different eras are just so cool. There's something so unique about every time, like the 80s, the 90s, even the early 2000s, which is not that long ago, but there's still a different essence to it, and the 50s and the 60s and the 40s and the 20s. And you can find something unique about every generation. And so yeah, I definitely look forward to experimenting and seeing what comes from just really playing around and making sounds that are different.
Is there, I mean, I know you have done a few collaboration pieces, haven't you? But I mean, is there anybody that you sort of aspire to collaborate with on a single or an album?
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, there's so many incredible artists that I love their music so much, and I love their work and their performances and even their songwriting. But I would say I really look forward to having like a collaboration with like Post Malone, with Ty Dolla Sign. I just think that would be a really powerful collaboration. I love Drake. He's also Canadian. I think the Kid Leroy is really cool. I mean, he's just on the rise right now, like crazy. Um, and I mean, I love Tiana Taylor. I could go on. There's so many incredible artists, and I look forward to collaborating, even in the most unexpected scenarios. Um, that's just something that we're going to start doing more and more of, I think, as more singles come out, as things spread a little bit more, and I really look forward to it.
Fantastic. Well, I look forward to hearing it as well. Do you know what, Sophia? Thank you so much for coming on Tea Time today. It's been really lovely to spend time with you and find out more about your music career that's really, beginning to skyrocket, isn't it?
Thank you. Thank you so much. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of hard work, but the journey is really special. I really appreciate you having the time to talk with me. Tea time, well, tea and coffee time, and it was really fun.
Good. Thanks. Bye. Look forward to chatting with my next guest on the Tea Time Sofa, this time next Saturday. In the meantime, if you would love to get in touch about having a chat with me, you can reach me on teatime@forthenow.co.uk, or you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram on Tea Time with AM. Bye for now.